So welcome to this highlights video. It's a fairly short to medium extended highlights summary of what was actually a very dramatic race in the Rfactor 2 competition system in the GTE cars at Spa. 30-minute race. This has been my race of choice in the system this week, and there's been some pretty dramatic racing. I've managed to pull off a couple of wins with smaller grids of 5 or 6 people. Did get taken out at turn 1 by what I thought was a pretty major error in a race where I was expected to come second, and that cost me 29% in my driver ranking. And in the following race managed to do okay and win back 2.8%. So dramas can have big impacts. Now this is a pretty high quality grid. I looked at some of the lap times, and I got to tell you, I think I choked a bit. My feet became a bit wooden, and my, in the words of Anthony Davidson, my inputs became a bit digital during qualifying. And I didn't qualify very well. I was well off my PB, which I'll show in a moment, but I qualified 6th out of 11 on the grid. A PB would have got me about 4th, so it wasn't the end of the world. Here we are on the warm-up lap. Interesting to note that you can choose to use the lower aero, the Le Mans aero if you want, or standard aero. Most of the quick guys, I'm sure, are using the Le Mans aero. Just noticing now that apart from one Corvette, every car ahead of me in qualifying was an Aston Martin, interestingly. With a pretty good sized grid packed full of talent. I've got to confess I was a bit nervous in quali, and I was a bit 0.8 off my PB, showing a couple of old quali slides here to show I could actually do a 15.2 and a 15.3 when the moment comes. So here we are about to take the start. Safety car will peel off to the right immediately after the chicane, and then we will race down to turn 1, La Source. Now correction, the Corvette was actually P7, so all 5 cars ahead of me are Aston Martins. My strategy here at the start, I wanted to clear the Corvette and move to the right, guaranteeing myself a safe passage around La Source. I've got to brake a bit earlier because I'm off the rubbered line, but it just means it's a lot less likely someone's going to come careering into the side of me from the inside. Safely through La Source, which was a great relief, because they had a big crash there in the previous race, and now chasing these 2 Astons in front of me. Pretty cautious first time through Eau Rouge and Radion on cold tyres. You've just got to be very careful in the Porsche what sort of check you ride with the front axle, because the rear axle has got to be able to catch that check, and the tyres aren't warm yet. But I'm getting ambitious here as I chase this guy in P5 in the Aston. He doesn't use the full width of the track there. I don't know if he was being defensive or whether it was me forcing him over there. Once again, doesn't use the full width of the track, which compromises his exit speed out of this complex and gives me a bit of a run on him. So without being too bold, I've shown myself a little bit down the inside. He either gets his line wrong or decides to give me room, and I think ends up on the marbles out there, or certainly off the racing line, and I'm through with a clean pass and into 5th place. We'll have a look at that from outboard. You can see there he's not using the full width of the road, and that is always going to cost you exit speed, corner speed, and that just gives me that run on him into Rivage, and giving each other room, which is nice and respectful, but I think he's in a low grip part of the track there in marble, certainly lack of rubbered line. So I'm now through into P5. This is a view from the victim's position of that pass, and pretty tidy really, and I'm just glad to be through and still in contact with the top 4. Just one corner later, exit of Pujon, and I'm sizing up the opposition here, and the Aston has had a pretty big moment there at the entry to the Campus Malmedy complex, and I'm starting to think again I can be trying to be ambitious in attacking these cars in front of me. So we're still on lap 1 here as we've exited the Paul Frere corner, and entering the final chicane here we see a bit of smoke coming from this Aston, and I'm just going to dwell on this for a second, because in Rfactor 2 it is just a lovely telltale sign that the tyre temps have gone very, very high. There's been a lock-up and the tyre's producing smoke, and that is going to tell you about either the current state or quite a moment there really, or the potential future state of that same car's tyres. So I'm always on the lookout if I'm chasing somebody to see if we're getting a bit of smoke off the tyres. We've jumped ahead now to lap 5, and you can see we're putting a bit of a gap on the cars behind us, which is good, and staying in touch with these cars in front, which is also very good. But what's really exciting is that the two of them are now starting to look very, very feisty, and there could be a battle inbound between the two Astons ahead of me, which potentially is going to create opportunity for me. Lap 6, beginning of lap 7, we've jumped ahead and we're on board the green Aston as it attacks the blue Aston Martin into the chicane. You can see he's had a nasty lock-up and an issue there in the chicane, and it is a very, very tricky corner here at Spa, but he's just lost some pace there. The green Aston fully alongside, able to challenge for position, and the driver respectfully and wisely backs out of it, and the green Aston and he change places. This is just my view of the change of positions ahead, and any action ahead of you is good action in my book. So this is lap 8, me looking forwards at the two Astons. I'm going as quick as I can, and I can't get any closer to these two cars. I'm running the soft tyres, which is fine here in a 30-minute race, but you do have to look after them a little bit with setup-wise, and a little bit by just not taking too much out of them by going a bit too kamikaze. So I resolved to just look after my tyres for a few laps and see if anything comes back to me later. This is now end of lap 9, beginning of lap 10 of this 14-lap race, and just to show you that we're all pretty close. I'm staying in touch with the top 4. We're all visible here on the pit straight together, as were the leaders visible going around the chicane as I approach the chicane. So pretty happy still to be so much in touch with the lead pack. Now we've jumped ahead to lap 11, and here at the entry of Le Pommes, it's pretty clear that the blue Aston Martin is dropping back ever so slightly off the lead bunch of 3 and falling back towards me ever so slightly. So I have tried to keep the tyres in good condition, and I'm now starting to spend what I've got left in terms of rubber and tyre performance, and starting to push that a little bit more to see if I can't just get some pressure piled up on this blue Aston and do something. However, he's going pretty well. He's not making any drastic errors, and he's not terribly slow at any particular part of the track. Maybe entry to Le Pommes, maybe entry to the final chicane, but the rest of the place is actually pretty solid, and the difference between our lap times over these next 2-3 laps is only about 0.1 of a second. So I'm going to need a bit more drop-off tyre-wise, or some error to really give me a chance to attack and pass this guy. He's certainly not performing according to the script, because I checked with crew chief to confirm what I'd seen on the telemetry map before we started, whatever it's called, that he is actually on medium tyres. So at this stage of the race, I was expecting him to start to pull away from me, but in fact the opposite is happening. So he's not performing according to the script. But at any rate, I'm getting a tiny bit closer lap by lap, which gives me hope. Lap 12, and this is Puhon, which we both get through okay, similar pace, and approaching the campus Malmedy complex. I find you've got to be so patient to get the car slowed in a little bit of trailing brake to bring the nose into the apex there to get a decent speed and decent approach to the second part. And the Aston runs a little bit wide and compromises his line significantly, and has an even bigger moment as we exit Stavelot and start to enter Port Frere, which causes us both to bore. I have to live significantly to avoid running into the back of him, but I just didn't have enough line, enough room to really take advantage and get beside him. But I'm right on him now, and suffice to say, he's aware of my presence, and the defence is starting to get very, very robust here on lap 12. So here just an external view of that same little battle, because I thought it was a fun one, and shows exactly what's going on track from both parties for your enjoyment. Entering the final chicane at the finish of lap 12, and it's my turn to have a bit of a moment, lose the rear end, which gives him a tiny bit of breathing space. But already just by the end of Kemmel, I'm back and all over the rear bumper of this Aston again, and for whatever reason, whether it's the tyre choice or handling or what it might be about the car, the setup, the Porsche definitely has the performance edge on the Aston at this point of time, which is cornering a little bit like a dog on a tiled floor. Now this is the final lap coming up here, and in this event we had 3 track cut points, and I've used 1.5 out of the 3 points, and certainly the Aston is in a mood now to spend a few of his remaining points. And credit to the driver, the car is handling like a pig, but he's not making big mistakes anywhere. He's doing the very, very best he can with the tools that he's got at his disposal at the moment. But I'm very conscious that my car has a bit more performance edge at this stage of the race, and I want to do everything I can to try to get really, really close. In the run down to Eau Rouge, which by the way is the left-hand kink, Radion, the big one, is the right-hand kink. I'm as brave as I can be through Radion. The Aston spends a couple of track cut points there by not adhering fully to the track surface, but I mean we've all done it at various stages during the race. We're going to show this lap in full because this is the money shot. I come out to the right there just to fill his mirrors a little bit and make him a little bit conscious of my presence. Hopefully just up the tempo a little bit and get his hands gripping the steering wheel a little bit tighter. But to no avail so far. I'm just pushing as hard as I can to get as close as I can to this car. It's pretty tidy through sector 2. And that was the funny thing. I thought with the mediums he'd be a little slow through sector 2. But I did think at the same time that his car was going to be in better shape than mine by this stage of the lap. So down into Pouhon, fast left-hander. It's tricky to get the turning point right, and you can see here that I'm battling a bit of oversteer, rear sliding a little bit, but managing to keep it in the right direction. Very conscious here into the right-hander, which I think is Campus, the Campus and Valmedi complex. He's certainly not repeating his error from before, and Blue Aston keeps a tidy line as we approach Stavelot. Exit of Stavelot so critical for the long run down to the chicane, and the Blue Aston executes that quite well, stays within track limits, and now it comes to money shot. I think I've got a pretty good run out of here, but I also know, and by the way, crew chief advised me that he's significantly slower than we are into the chicane. I'm not going to blame the crew chief, but the crew chief said to me half a lap ago, "Come on David, send it already." So I sent it. And we had a bit of side-by-side contact there into the chicane, and the driver in the Blue Aston was very, very unhappy with that contact that had occurred. It is, I think, important to view it from outside the car to fully understand it, but that was his response to the contact. So what do I think? I think I probably didn't have quite the overlap I thought I had. My front axle only met the level of his rear axle probably slightly after the turning point. In my defence, I think I'd slowed enough to make the corner, whether or not we had the contact, but yes, we did have the contact. He had assumed a very defensive posture right down the middle of the road, leaving me a small strip of road down the inside or a small strip of road down the outside, compromising his entry. I chose the inside line. I think it was a tough move on my part. He defended pretty well. I'm going to say probably 70-30, blame rests with me. So for that fact, I'm going to apologise to the driver involved. but I don't think it was an incredibly dirty move. I think it was just a bit marginal. I needed to be maybe a metre further forward than I was, and I had endured some pretty fierce defensive driving for 3 or 4 laps. But anyway, got the 4th place. Apologies to the gentleman who came 5th. I hoped I could have done it cleaner than I did it, and hope it's another good race the next time.